I was just waiting for the timer. Okay, I want to talk about an issue that is very, very contentious in the United Kingdom, and I'm sure in other countries as well. That is the issue of fathers' rights. Now, before I continue, I want to make it clear that I don't have first-hand experience of this. I'm not a father myself. I don't have any children. I'm unmarried. I don't have any children. So everything I say is not from first-hand experience. And I absolutely want to make clear I don't know all the issues. But, you know, these YouTube videos are not intended as a sort of comprehensive analysis of any issues, but rather my reflections on any given issue. And I believe this is a very important thing. As a man, I sympathise with fellow men who I believe are given a raw deal on this issue. The most vocal and active group in the United Kingdom, pressure group in this regard, is Fathers for Justice, which has been around for about, I guess, 10-15 years. I'm not a member of Fathers for Justice, but I'm sympathetic to what they do. The reason I'm not a member is because A, I don't know all the issues, B, I'm not a father myself, and C, well, for those reasons. But I am broadly pretty sympathetic to them. Not sympathetic to all their tactics. I think some of their more radical tactics have been a bit polarising. I'll talk a little bit more about Fathers for Justice in a minute, but one of the campaigns they're running right now is specifically about children who are fatherless at Christmas. In other words, they don't see their fathers at Christmas. Christmas, of course, is a very cheerful, happy time, or at least it should be. But for many people, the reality is it is not. Now, this government, Conservative-led government, has obviously taken a lot of public positions on the issue of families and parenting. And for what I have seen, David Cameron has personally, not just his government, but he has personally not only done nothing to help fathers, but slandered fathers. And I think that is disgraceful, especially since Cameron himself. Now, usually I'm not someone to pick on tabloid stories about politicians, but it is significant. Not long ago, David Cameron had left his own young daughter in a pub. Now, it was an honest mistake, but I think he should be very careful about lecturing other fathers when he done that. And usually I wouldn't make an issue of that, but I think it is because he has slandered fathers. What Cameron has done is talked about bad fathers without saying anything positive about the many good fathers who are treated unfairly. It's the same attitude he takes with the unemployed, which is only focusing on those who abuse the system and not the many unemployed people who are trying their level best. And this is what I despise about the Tory party. They scapegoat and vilify people in this way, and it's not progressive at all. Like I said, I don't know all the issues, so I don't want to talk in detail about the legal situation in this country, but I do have a very strong perception that fathers get a raw deal compared to mothers. And I've just looked at the government's own position on this. This is what they say. I'm not going to read out the whole thing, but this is their definition of parental responsibility, and there's one part I find quite striking. This is directly from gov.uk. What is parental responsibility? All mothers and most fathers have legal rights and responsibilities as a parent, known as parental responsibility. If you have parental responsibility, your most important roles are to provide a home for the child, protect and maintain the child. And it goes on to say that, well, there's a wide variety of things. It's too long to read out in this video, but I think that's striking. All mothers and most fathers have legal rights and responsibilities. Now, for all the talk in this country about equality, this is an area where I believe strongly that men are not treated equally as fathers. Now, I'm assuming when it says all mothers and most fathers have legal rights and responsibilities. It goes on to say that everyone has responsibilities, but some parents don't have legal rights. Now, that may as well read some fathers, because it is overwhelmingly fathers that get the raw end of the deal here. Now, it could be argued that in some cases there is legal protection for the child if one parent has been abusive, and that is entirely, I think most reasonable people would understand that policy. What I don't understand is why it is so biased towards women, towards mothers, because there are, I'm sure, just as many abusive mothers out there as there are abusive fathers. Now, I don't take issue with Cameron calling out bad fathers, i.e. fathers who are irresponsible, who get a woman pregnant and then couldn't care less about the child, and those sort of guys do exist. But there are also irresponsible mothers and abusive mothers, and the fact that the system is so biased against fathers, and for that matter good fathers, is disgraceful. I staunchly believe that so long as both parents are caring and responsible, they should have equal access to the child. I staunchly believe that. And I think what happens is in many cases there is a divorce. Sometimes it's bitter, and unfortunately the child gets dragged between the two sides, and in most cases it is the mother that seems to get custody. Now, I'm basing this on my perception. I don't know the absolute statistics, but this is my perception, and I think it's a fair perception based on so much of the information that is available out there that I've looked at. It does seem that mothers definitely have far more rights in terms of access to the child, and I think that's wrong, because whilst it is true that there is a mother that obviously is pregnant and gives birth to the child, you can't do that without a father. So to me it's just disgraceful the way men are treated in this regard. Now, I have no problem with a bad parent being denied access to a child if they have abused a child. That's common sense. But what is so unfair about the current situation is that there are many clearly loving fathers out there who do not have a 50-50 access to their child, and that is disgraceful, and it basically just reduces men to little more than an ATM or an accessory, and I think that is shameful. And I do believe that there are selfish women out there, not all women, okay, I think it's a minority of women, but they do exist, selfish, bitter women who get revenge on their ex-husbands by preventing them from seeing their children, and in some cases poisoning their children against their own fathers, and then the child grows up without having seen both sides. I think this is an utter disgrace, and if the government is going to take a hard line against irresponsible fathers, surely there should be penalties for mothers who use their children as a weapon. I think that is, in a way, that is a form of child abuse in itself. I just think it is utterly disgraceful. So I do think that Fathers for Justice have a lot of valid points of concern. Not long ago there was a man who went to prison for 6 months. I forget the guy's name, but in his desperation he vandalised a picture of the Queen. I think it was in the National Portrait Gallery. He vandalised it not as a Republican statement, but by basically writing ink on it saying something like, "I want help," or it was a cry out for help. This was a desperate man who was suffering. He got 6 months for that, which was a disgrace. Now, it was vandalism, so maybe he should have been fined or something, but that shows the desperation that many fathers will go through. These are not bad guys. They are men who love their children. And incidentally, Fathers for Justice has many women supporters. Not only daughters who have seen what this has done to their fathers, but also girlfriends of the fathers who are supportive and can see what this is doing to them. In fact, as far as I know, the current leader of Fathers for Justice is a woman. So some people have accused Fathers for Justice of misogyny and hating women. I'll be honest, I have seen 1 or 2 misogynistic comments on their forum, but they have also made very clear rules against that sort of language. Um, and it's well known that they've had a bit of dispute with the group Mumsnet. Now, I don't want to comment much about Mumsnet because I really don't know much about it, so it would be inappropriate for me to comment about that. Fathers for Justice and Mumsnet don't get on with each other. Both accuse each other of bigotry towards. Fathers for Justice accuses Mumsnet of misandry. Mumsnet accuses Fathers for Justice of misogyny. Both claim to be equal parenting groups. So I'm not going to say anything against Mumsnet, I simply don't know enough about it. I did check out the website just to get some perception, and I didn't see anything on that was particularly objectionable, so I don't know. But I have followed Fathers for Justice for a while, and whilst I don't exactly agree with all of their approaches, for example, a while back some Fathers for Justice people had planned to kidnap the Prime Minister's son. That was when Tony Blair was Prime Minister. I think that would have been hugely counterproductive. They also had this stunt where they would handcuff themselves to politicians and things like that. I think as a campaign group, as a lobby group, the worst thing you can do is alienate the public. So sometimes I think Fathers for Justice, in their pain and their frustration, they have sometimes been a bit irresponsible in terms of getting wider public support, and I do think they would have wider public support if they were a bit more responsible in how they go about things. However, there have been divisions from what I gather within the movement, and I mean, if you look at their website, it seems passionate but responsible to me, so maybe they have taken that on board. But clearly there is a situation here where men do not have equality when it comes to parental rights. Now, of course, with rights there is responsibility, and I don't believe that it should be confused that having rights means sort of automatic access without responsibility. I have a very dim view of parents who don't take responsibility because, for one thing, it impacts the rest of us. But what I have a problem with is the sexism against men in this regard, and the government has shamefully promoted that. They have shamefully promoted the idea that only some fathers are irresponsible without recognising the fact that some mothers are irresponsible. Some mothers are bad mothers. And I just think it's very sexist and very unfair. And this is driving good men to suicide, to sheer desperation. And I think women who use their children as weapons to try and hurt the father, I think that is utterly despicable. And I think those women should face some sort of consequences, legal consequences, because it is utterly shameful. So why is David Cameron and his government not coming out and saying it is wrong that some women will use their children as a pawn, as a weapon? Children are human beings. They shouldn't be thrown around in that way. And both parents, both father and mother, have a responsibility not to do that. Now, I've seen women comment on Fathers for Justice and saying that they have more access than the father. However, they support the principles and they don't allow their bitterness with the father to. They don't bring the child into that. And I agree with that idea. I mean, unquestionably, some divorces and some breakups are very bitter. People get hurt, and then it becomes very bitter, but it is wrong to bring a child into that. And I think some women do that. They feel bitter at the husband, maybe with some justification, maybe he's done something wrong, but it is wrong to turn a child against their father in that way, if he has been a good father. Okay, maybe he hasn't been a great husband, but if he's been a good father, it is despicable, quite frankly, to turn the child against him, in my opinion. And I just think that fathers have a raw deal in this regard. I'm going to leave it there. As a man, I have sympathy with my fellow men. I'm not a father myself. I hope I never ever have to face this situation, because it sounds horrible. But clearly the law needs to be changed to be a lot more equal in this regard, and it's not. It is biased towards women and mothers. And there has to be a change in attitudes, that men are just disposable, that they are accessories, that they are ATMs. That attitude has to change. Yes, fathers have responsibility, so do mothers. And part of responsibility is not using your child as a weapon. So I think that's disgraceful. It's cruel, especially at this time of year. I just believe staunchly in 50-50 parenting, or at least an amicable situation. Okay, maybe the two parents don't get on, but they should at least work together for the sake of the child. So that's my views on this matter.